Welcome in, Paul Catalina and Steven Simcox here on the Triple Option. Steven, so good to see you. The Wednesday Wonderkind.
Good to see you too, Paul.
Yes. So we have another week of rankings that we can overreact to. And you know what? We're going to do that, Steven.
It's America's way, baby.
We're going to do that.
We get
We're
worked up about them.
Overreact to them. And I think that like some of the things are valid. I think the reason to complain is that there are it just doesn't make a lot of it just doesn't make sense, and you listen to the explanations, because it just the narrative plugs in. So that we're just really, if we could get some real honest, we don't like SMU. Like if they just said that, like we've got in this room, we just decided that we don't care who they've beaten. Yeah. We don't like them.
Do you think they actually break down numbers in there? I mean, do you feel like they're looking at like advanced stats and stuff?
I really don't know.
What do you think, Garrett?
I mean, I think at this point, as much as analytics are part of it, I'm sure you got somebody in there that's diving into that stuff.
I'm sure they have the information. Yeah. Right. I just feel like they just go off the eye test. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think they just go off their gut and they make the rankings, and then they trot, the sacrificial lamb out there to be like, all right, if they ask you why we did this, then here's our answer. But, I mean, I don't get the impression that they're actually breaking down each week who's doing what and all those things. So, yeah, it probably is just SMU now. They're not for real in their minds, which, I mean, there's an argument against it. But it seems like right now, Paul, it can always change. It always does. There's just everybody's worst fear outside the SEC and Big Ten is happening, which is there's teams in the SEC that are still in the mix that you thought like, 2-loss Ole Miss, like they're done, and they're still sitting there like right in the thick of it with everybody else, and it feels like we could just get one Big 12 team, and maybe 2 ACC teams, but it's very slim pickings outside of those 2 major conferences.
I think we're going to get one of each because I think Notre Dame's going to make it. And then here's the thing. I feel bad for Army because if they do, in fact, lose to Notre Dame, that's going to be the thing that keeps them out. Mm-hmm. Like, well, you lost to Notre Dame, so
yeah,
clearly you can't beat any other playoff teams.
Right.
Now, look, if Notre Dame drills them like they did Navy, then okay, but Army has not trailed for a single second all year long, and the committee says, congratulations, 24. I mean, putting them ahead of, say, Louisville would have been nice.
Right.
But it's not your wins, it's your losses. I think that's the thing that we learn.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State's sitting there, and I don't think well, I guess we'll see what happens here towards the end, but, I mean, I get it. Like, they've been impressive outside of that week against Ohio State, but it's the same Penn State team we've seen for years now where they're really good except for against the heavyweights in the Big Ten.
Yeah. And, look, the Big 12 to me, I mean, having, 0 losses and then to 2 losses is a problem.
Yeah,
for them.
Iowa State was. I mean, it was cool for Kansas, but that was an absolute killer.
Yeah,
this week, and Texas Tech too, but for different reasons.
Yeah, but Colorado though. I mean, again,
Well, I mean, that feels like a squad. They've got NFL talent. They've obviously got brand appeal with Dion. But the 2 losses, it's just hard to get past that.
Well, yeah, one is to Nebraska, a team that's probably going to be 6-6, and then one is to Kansas State, who's right there above them in the rankings. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I mean, I think that there's certainly arguments you can make, but Miami dropped down 5 spots after losing to Georgia Tech. They certainly look like they've got some problems, because if they're going to be at 9 and SMU is at 14, and let's just say those numbers hold around that area, then whoever wins the champ, if they both win out the next couple, whenever they get to the championship game and play each other, the winner's going, the loser's out. That's what 9-14 tells me about Miami and SMU.
It seems that way. It seems like it's a playing game of sorts.
Notre Dame is the second ACC team.
They just go to a different campus.
Yeah.
They're like the transfer students.
No, my girlfriend, she goes to a different school.
That's right.
She goes to a different school. You don't know her.
She's in South Bend.
She's like so hot though. She's like so hot. Like every time,
she
like
would kill here.
She would kill it here. Like sometimes she'll show up at like here or like 3 other schools that are like around us. Like most of the time, she just kind of like chills, keeps to herself. What's up? You know, like she just, it's unbelievable. But, you know, look, she does her own thing, and that's why I love her.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to watch it play out. But I guess, let me ask you about BYU for a second, Paul, because I love them. I love the fan base. I think it's great. I like their identity. I think, you know, Kalani Sitake's a good coach. I'm already seeing like the outpouring of, well, they couldn't hang with so-and-so. As a TCU fan, I want to step in and be like, come on, Big 12, like, let's go. But then anytime I say that, people are like, hey, remember that time y'all played Georgia? And I'm like, well, and it sucks because I want to be like, well, remember Michigan? But, you know, the Georgia thing kind of outweighs it. Do you feel like they're built for playoff football? I mean, it seems like there's more parity this year than there typically has been.
I think so. I think, like, look, the transfer portal has changed everything. Mm-hmm. There's more parity. Nobody to me is like Oregon to me is the best team top to bottom, and they're not as intimidating as 2022 Georgia was.
Yeah.
You know, like that's over, you know, and I mean, like I have no problem saying that I think that era of college football is over, of a team being so ridiculously powerful and intimidating that you're like, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. Why are the rest of us here? Like, can someone tear their ACL so then they don't win a game and then we get in the playoff? like you want those things. Yeah. Like, you know, I don't want them to I want to be able to play again, just not this year. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is that has to happen, you know, like those kind of feelings you have as fans. So I don't know. I think that era is over. So I think BYU I think if you watch the games, BYU can hang with anybody. Mm-hmm. Now, the question's going to be, you know, like offensively, defensively, they're legit. Offensively, they're okay. You know, Retzlaff's good. They don't really run the ball that great. It comes and goes, but because of their defense, they're in games, you know, and their defense creates opportunities.
Right.
You know, and they got their, you know, and here's the thing. Every team, I can point to almost every team in this top 12 and tell you that they've had a bailout moment given to them by officials or game situation.
Right.
For example, even though it didn't work out for them, it wound up being a loss. Texas got a bailout moment. I mean, you know, like, so everybody gets them. It just depends on how the game finishes. But Texas might be further down in the rankings had they not played a little bit better in that second half, because if not for that call, if that call doesn't flip around, I don't know if Texas scores again. I don't know if they do.
Well, and it kind of, I totally get what you're saying. It kind of funnels into like what people think about BYU too, because you know, every magical undefeated season for the most part has a moment that's like,
well, and
wow,
they've got a couple right now of coming back and beating Oklahoma State, and then they not only doubled that, like they like split it and doubled down and all that stuff with the Utah game last week. So, which to me, like, thank you for getting this rivalry in the Big 12.
Oh, it's amazing,
because Baylor and TCU is a really good rivalry, and as much as Baylor and TCU don't like each other, I would say that don't like stops at the door of hate yet. I don't think it's quite there.
No, it was there for a little bit when the coaches hated each other. Not anymore.
No, that's the thing. Like, the coaches are cool with each other.
Right.
And you kind of wish they wouldn't be.
I know. And since the Art Gary thing, like, the coaches have gone out of their way to be like, oh, I respect this other person so much.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you don't have to, like, it's not like a best man speech. Well, like, you can.
You know what's funny about Art and Gary? Art would have never said anything either way about Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Like, he would never.
Yeah, that's true.
There were he was friends with Coach Kingsbury, and he would say, like, yeah, Cliff and I, coached him, but he would never say, like, anything either way.
Right.
Gary, like, made it known.
I don't like this guy.
Yeah, made it known. I didn't like this guy. And, like, I wish you'd have been like, so what are your thoughts on Coach Browse and the offense they're running this year? You'd be like, when we're getting the offense, I'm going to tell you straight, don't like him. Don't like him. I don't like him. I don't like his face. I don't like the way he talks. I don't like his kid. I don't like his other kid's husband that's on that staff. Phil Bennett's cool.
You're like, wait, what was the question?
I mean, Bennett's cool, right? Like, Bennett's cool. And, like, I have the feeling that that's how Phil Bennett is with, like, 95% of coaches. Like, there's, like, the little tiny subset that, like,
Phil Bennett's
hard not to like.
That don't like him. And then you look at those people like, oh, well, yeah, they're probably all,
something's wrong.
They're probably all jerks. Like, that was the kind of thing there. So it makes, and here's the deal: Kalani Sitake and Kyle Whittingham don't hate each other. They love each other. They work together, coach, like all those things.
Yeah,
like,
Kyle took like a minute out of reaming out this ref.
Yeah.
To be like, to dap up Kalani. He was like he was like mid rant, and he was like, "Oh yeah, good game, brother." And then he went right back to like.
But the thing is that the coaches, honestly, could literally like have a camping trip on the 50-yard line after the game where they like put on jammies and get in things like, hey, we're gonna watch scary movies. If you guys want to hang out, we're making s'mores. Everybody's coming here, and the fans would be like, we don't like s'mores.
Yeah.
We don't. If they're going to eat s'mores, we're not going to eat s'mores. Like, neither of us are eating s'mores. They don't like each other, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, it feels like it's not on the national level, but the feelings feel like Alabama, Auburn, or Michigan, Ohio State. Where
absolutely.
All year long, this is what they've been waiting for. And you saw it. I mean, Utah played out of their minds for most of that game. At least the defense did. And it meant a lot to them. They came up short, and, BYU survived.
Yeah, And the thing is that you have to feel for a lot of teams in the Big 12. Well, and like all these teams are in alignment, but particularly I think the Big 12 has been hit hardest with, because like some of the the four corner schools got to move with some of their Arizona State got to come together. Colorado didn't really have many. Like Colorado
didn't have a rival.
Colorado got to actually get some of theirs back.
Yeah,
because they don't like Kansas State at all. They don't care for Kansas. They don't care for Oklahoma State. Like they don't.
Right, there's some history there.
Yeah, there's some history there. So Colorado got some of theirs back, as were Tech and Baylor and Oklahoma State in particular. Just had to watch theirs go right out the door. And when you ask Texas Tech, who do you hate the most? They'll be like, well, now I guess it's Baylor. I don't know. I mean, they were on my list, but I had this feeling about them. But Texas and A&M were clearly above them, especially A&M. I think I don't know. It's probably. I'd have to ask a Tech fan, before, with Texas and A&M, who was your most hated rival? Because, I know that, right now it's probably Baylor. And they're probably, I would say they're second for Baylor fans and TCU. I think TCU and Baylor are number one. I don't know how TCU and Tech feel about each other. I mean, there's, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a hatred. There's some bad blood there, and they have a cool trophy, they play for the Cowboy saddle, but it's not the main rivalry. Yeah, so but if you're a Tech fan, it was Texas and A&M. And I think maybe A&M first because everybody hated Texas. So it's not like there were special. They were special. Yeah. And not that everybody didn't hate A&M, but it was varying degrees of who, especially the Southwest Conference days. But A&M and Tech had a rivalry that A&M fans very snobbily refused to acknowledge existed. But it was a rivalry. It was absolutely a rivalry. But A&M tried to pretend, and this is their big flaw. And they've learned it now because they've tried to create some new rivalries, which I think LSU. Oh,
that's a rivalry now.
It's a rivalry now. It finally became one.
They willed it into existence.
Yeah, they willed, especially this year. They willed it into existence. But I. Answer Roy Melton, always A&M. Yeah, for Texas Tech. Yeah, that's what I think. So, yeah, A&M I would say the most hated for Tech because, again, A&M was like, no, we have one rival. We care about the one they call Longhorn. We shall slay them on top of the mount,
Right.
And then all will be restored to justice. That was their attitude. You're like, well, Baylor didn't like you very much. Tech really hates your guts. And they're like, yeah.
It's Texas.
It's Texas. And they're like, yeah, but, and look, Baylor, to me, and I'll tell you this, Baylor saying A&M was their rival was laughable in football because for 30-plus years they beat them twice. Mm-hmm. So that's not a rivalry. Tech, though, used to beat some really good A&M teams and, kind of derail their season. They had games where, Tech tore the goalpost down and, shoved it into the band. I mean, they were trying. Tech was like, listen, F you, dude. And A&M's like, well, this is just so rude. I don't know where this is coming from. And you're like, no, we've never liked you. You've got to reciprocate this. Mm-hmm. We don't like you, but we're going to pretend like we don't care. But I can tell you that A&M fans are like, why do we lose to Tech? I think R.C. Slocum got fired because he lost to Tech 2 years in a row, 2-3 years in a row right there at the end. But they've been like, well, no, we got to keep pace with Texas. Oh, okay. It's not because Mike Leach is
suddenly taking you down.
Yeah, Mike Leach has figured you out. Yeah. No. So then A&M leaves the conference and they don't have any rivals. And they're like, you know what, LSU, you're a rival. And until literally 2 weeks ago, LSU was like, if that makes you feel better. Sure, welcome aboard, guys. Here's the thing. We really like playing you there because we're probably going to win. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to stay in Houston for 36 hours and go to all the commits that you think you're going to get. And you're going to be like, hey, come here and win a national title. And you're going to be like, why did we lose that guy? What happened?
That's exactly how it rolls.
So,
speaking of rivals, Paul, I cannot tell you how hard this is for me that SMU is legitimately a force in this thing.
I didn't even think about that.
They're leading the ACC.
Hey,
they're probably going to play in the ACC title game.
Think about this. There's been nobody who's transitioned from G5 to Power Conference.
I've thought about it. I've thought about it a lot. They literally took like 4 Austin Powers villains, just threw a bunch of money in a pot, and it worked. They're just like, hey, can we be in your conference? We got a lot of cash. I'm like, okay. And then we all laughed at them. We're like, you idiots. You're just buying your way into a conference so you can lose. And they're winning. Their head coach is Rhett Lashley. And they might be in the dang playoff, man.
Rhett was on the show yesterday.
I'm sure he's a good person,
yes.
But
he is. I love him.
It's not like they went and hired Dabo. I didn't even know they had fans until 2 years ago. And then all of a sudden, all these burner accounts on Twitter popped up. And they're just running the world. It's insane. I don't like it at all. I've spent most of my life just knowing that they exist, but they're just their relevance is a fantasy, and now they're going to be in the freaking playoff maybe. I can't do this, Paul.
I got to tell you, when I went there a few weeks ago and watched them absolutely end DJU's career, which is what they did. I'm really surprised that they didn't just send send his helmet back like Darth Vader's, at the end of Return of the Jedi. It just wasn't I think that honestly it was that's what SMU was doing at the end of the night, just playing our helmets yum. It was so bad. But I did have a good time. I thought their tailgating scene had quite improved.
Don't tell me that.
Yeah.
I know. They made a lot of strides in a lot of different areas.
It's a really pretty campus. I like TCU's a very pretty campus.
No, it's a beautiful campus.
Yeah.
I don't care. I thought when they beat BYU, or when they lost to BYU 18-15 on a Friday night, I was like, man, that's just 2 mid teams going at it. Mm-hmm. 2 teams that aren't very good. And then 2 weeks later, they hung 66 points on us. And apparently that was the confidence they needed. It's suddenly they came They came back to high school after summer vacation, and they were hot, and they rejected TCU, and then they just went on a heater. And now they can't lose. They destroyed Pitt. It was like a big game. It was like, all right, this is it. This is the rest. Like rubber meets the road where they'll collapse. No, they won that game. I still don't know what happened against Duke. They won that game somehow. I hate it, man.
Yeah. Yep. I wish there was another thing I could get to pull some of this out, but I'm running out of stuff. I mean, yeah,
things are turning on their. I mean, the world's not normal anymore.
No, I mean that's true, Stephen. That's very true.
It's true.
Yeah. No, it's. Yeah.
I'm not talking about the other thing. I'm talking about SMU.
Yeah. No, that's true. No, but it's ridiculous.
They had a role. They had a lane that they were supposed to be in, and they've exited to another lane, and I don't like it.
So I ran into a girl I went to high school with in Fort Myers, Florida, and she was, I think she got her master's at FSU, but her husband, like she had moved here and she got divorced and she got remarried. And her husband is an SMU alum. They live there in Highland Park. So she's done great. She's living life. She's a real estate agent in Highland Park, which, you know, everybody
probably doing well.
Everybody there's motivated to buy, you know. Like in your business as like a mortgage broker, when that person calls, you're like, no problem.
Yep. Yeah, they're not buying like $100,000 houses.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, but you're like, oh, you got, I don't know, 10 minutes for me to run this. I don't think there's going to be a problem.
Dude, it's insane.
Yeah.
The people are coming out of the woodwork. Like, I didn't even know these people existed, all these fans.
Yeah.
It's like Black Eyed Peas fans. Like, I mean, people knew the Black Eyed Peas existed. You've never met a Black Eyed Peas fan.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, now all these SMU fans are out here talking about how great their ponies are.
Here's the sentiment I got from SMU fans, Stephen. It was walking around talking to a lot of them. This was a very important thing to the culture of this university.
Yes.
Then the NCAA took it away. Mm-hmm. And for years, there was no way to claw back out of this. Then the NCAA essentially collapsed. So we now can do what we were just sitting here doing before, because everybody's doing it. And nobody even realizes that we've been sitting here for 40 years almost with all this money and no place to spend it because you wouldn't let us. And now we can do that again. So we're gonna bring back the thing that we love so much and we want it to be good. So we're going to do everything we can within the realms of whatever the power structure is in college football to let us do it. And I can see how that would anger TCU fans because you're like, well, you think you were doing it the hard way. Like, we're doing it the hard way. Like, we've had to do this and this and this and this. We've been to this conference and this conference and that conference and that conference. And now we're in the Big 12. And then we're in the national championship game. And then Georgia happens. And we're kind of back to square one, it feels like. And then SMU's just like, open the vault.
I know. Whoop-de freaking do, man. Yeah. I mean, they made fun of us for the last couple of years because of the Georgia thing, and in my mind, I was like, well, at least they'll never be in that position. But now look where we are. This is the worst.
And then it's just, when's the last game in the series before they?
I think it's next year. So we got to win next year. Like, yeah. I'm going to suit up myself, I think. I don't know how much I'll help, but. I can take this in my own hands. Because if we end the series because we're like, you guys aren't that important, and then we lose the last two, gosh, I'm already doing therapy once a week. I can't do 3 times. No,
here's the thing. They need to keep the series going. Like, they need to do this, like, the little 2-year break thing and then bring it back because the rivalry games are going to be the television numbers. And if SMU is legitimately staying power good and this is not just a, hey, all this is working out because of the money we spent thing, then.
Yeah, keep the game. I mean, it's a Power 4 game at this point.
But yeah, it's a Power 4 game. It's going to be a ratings game. They have to do it. So I thought it was silly in the first place that they got rid of it. And I think you're probably reaping some karma right now. in the short term.
Well, I'm going to start praying more then because we got to defeat this karma.
You just imagine, like, I just think like a little, like, I think of it in Catholic terms, like a little boy, like saying his prayers at night, like, dear God, please give us world peace. But if you can't give me world peace, just can you please put SMU back to where they were before all this?
I don't have to imagine it. I got a note card for my kids every night. I mean, like, we got to defeat this evil.
Steven, I don't know, like, you might be the one who believes me. I don't think anybody believes. I don't think Garrett even believes me.
That's a good setup.
You know what I'm about to say, right?
I'm kind of confused, but let me see.
No. So I have said, and I look, this year has even solidified it further. In fact, this past weekend solidified it further for me. I would rather FSU, if FSU could be great again, Bowden era great, year after year again, if the trade-off for that was that Miami and Florida also had to be great, I would take it. Because I can deal with a loss to Miami and Florida. I can deal with a rivalry game loss as long as that doesn't get, like, out of whack where it's like a long stretch of
5 or 6 years.
The only team you lose to is this one, right? But that was never really the case there. 2 years here, 3 years there. Actually, the Miami streak got long because Chris Ricks couldn't beat them. He lost them 5 times. And so, I would trade that for them to be good all the time again. Mm-hmm. If the rising tide raises,
all boats.
All boats. That's what I would like. Do you believe that when I say that, Garrett?
I mean, I get where you're coming from, but Alabama just beat the hell out of LSU, so I'm not really feeling it.
Okay, so but you believe that do you believe that I have that sentiment?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Do you believe me?
I do, yeah.
Okay, most people don't. Most people think I'm like saying something like a politician, like, look, I'm the president for all Americans, not just the ones who voted for me. No, I mean, like, no, I'm serious. Like, I will take it because it was way more fun that way than 1 and 9.
Well, and I think for you, I mean, not that it's dissipated but I feel like the peak of your Florida State fandom, like the time in your life where that was your life.
Yeah.
It coincided with Miami and Florida being
great. Yeah.
And so those games were like an event.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I guess in theory, if kind of the same way, like if suddenly SMU and Baylor and TCU, it was like this round robin where we're getting great games every year and those games mean something that have stakes, I would love that.
Right now, like if it was a music festival, like back then it would have been Woodstock. Mm-hmm. And now it's just like, okay, well, who's the headliner? And you're like, Foo Fighters, like, awesome. Foo Fighters, who else is here? It's like 2/3 of some bands that you liked. But the lead singer is a different guy, you know. They found him on YouTube, and you're like, okay, all right. Like,
what was your immediate reaction? I mean, I was here the day that it happened, but I guess I didn't ask you this. What was your immediate reaction when you saw the Billy Napier news that he was staying for another year? Were you like, let's go? Or were you just like, okay.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Okay. I know that's contradictory to what I just said, but I mean, that's my initial reaction.
Right.
But my other reaction is like, guys, we all I think they need to get together and be like, hey, do you remember who was alive in the 90s?
Yeah, there was a time where this was really good.
Like, do you remember we were all good and then we've just let everything fall apart? Now, part of the problem in Florida right now is the high school rules are wrecking the talent. You can transfer anywhere you want to go. So you've got these kids hopping all over the place. They don't start here. They don't develop. So the talent's not as developed. Now, it used to be comparing Texas and Florida. Charlie Strong said this is like Texas kids have great high school coaching. They have facilities. They know what protein shakes are. He's like, you're in Florida. You recruit a kid, from Belglade, and he's maybe had one protein shake because he got it at the camp that they took him to, right? And they have a weight room with 3 benches and a squat rack, and some mismatched dumbbells, and so he gets he gets into a school that has all that stuff, and you take this guy who's a linebacker who's 6'3", 190, and then he becomes 6'4", 225, 245 in a year and a half, and he's a monster and he's hungry, as where the kid in Texas is already 6'3", 225 because he might max out before. Well, they're not even to the point of where they're 6'3", 190. Like it's dissipating. And so those three need to get together and say, hey, let's take this back. Let's take it back because we controlled it for so long. But now Alabama and Georgia, and of course recruiting is national for everybody. But yeah, let's just say this was Florida. The state of Florida in the 90s was the hub of college football. Mm-hmm. It's not that way.
Right.
It's not that way anymore.
No, it's not.
So,
yeah, I mean, I could definitely see where you would be nostalgic for that. And also just like the idea of, like you said, all right, if everybody's good all of a sudden, you can't get embarrassed.
Yeah.
So you better be good. So it just, competition breeds success.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, is it wheel time?
What time is it?
It's 1:30.
We could do the wheel.
Let's go ahead and do the wheel.